Alright, let's start from the top here. Basically what I have here is your first guitar, your second guitar, exported bass, and exported drums here. So all together sounds like this. Okay, so for editing, first things first, what's unusual, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm gonna try to stretch these tracks a little bit so they look bigger. I'm gonna hold Control, pull this down, it moves all of them. And you can see here that in the beginning your guitars are pretty loud, and then this last riff is relatively quiet. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but as a result, I have my snap enabled by hitting Alt S, or for you probably Apple S or whatever, Command S, I don't know. That enables the snap, and then you can change the snap grid by right-clicking. Where's it? It's like right-clicking here, and you can adjust the grid snap here, quarter note, eighth note, whatever you want to do. So let's go ahead and snip these, snip. Now I'm gonna add some gain so that they look similar in volume. That's annoying. I can turn it down, but I can't turn it up. There we go. It looks like a little too much. And that looks better. Okay. So now we're working with more visible wave file, like waves, so you can see shit line up better. And here we go. Let's see. First things first, I'm probably going to solo this guitar, solo the bass, so I can listen to the bass, which I know is on because it's MIDI bass, so therefore I'll use that as a reference. I use S a lot to split the file so that I make sure I don't edit stuff around it by accident. So in this case, this one's already split. And then if you hold down Alt, you can move the entire wave around without moving the file itself. Whereas if you just click and move the file, then it moves the entirety of the piece. And this is essential because you're going to be doing this a lot, pretty often, pretty fast. Okay, so first things first, you can see that the bass is off here with the guitar. So I'm going to hold down Alt, I'm going to slide this back so the first note lines up. Zoom to kind of just make sure that the peak lines up here. I'll go ahead and cut this, make sure this lines up. Okay. Then for example, it seems like this note here is a little bit late, right here. So what I would do, if you want to be like super technical about it, is undo your snap so you can click anywhere. It doesn't snap to the grid. Cut a little bit before, pull it back, and kind of make sure that this blends nicely. And if you zoom in, you'll notice this here indicates that it's a crossfade, whereas here you have this gap. This gap will make click noises or clips or whatever, but this way it automatically crossfades to prevent that from happening. Okay, so now onto the third note here. This note looks a little bit late also, so again, hit S to splice it. I would just hit Alt and then slide it back. and then make sure that this crossfade is nice and smooth. That takes care of that note. Fourth note here is early. So what we're going to do is split it, line it up a little bit more here, and then we're going to stretch this note to blend into the next note here by going to the edge and then also hitting Alt, and that's going to time stretch just a little bit, but it'll keep the note the same note. It won't change the note itself, it'll just stretch it, so that'll fill in that gap there. Otherwise, there's other ways of doing it, they just sound more artificial and not as natural. So here again, this note is late, so I'm going to splice it, or slide it back holding Alt, and then crossfade. This note looks just a hair early, so slice it, scoot it forward, and then Alt to time stretch this previous note to fill in that gap there. This one looks pretty on, but if you really wanted to be neurotic about it, again, you split it, line it up here, time stretch this previous one, and then crossfade that note there. So now this whole phrase so far has been edited, but you have this little pause here that we can cut out. So here's the tail of the next note. We want to keep that. I'm going to pull out this stuff before it, which you're not actually playing. It's kind of a quick palm mute. And then this, you can adjust the fade. You can see the wave file change actually. So this would be a more abrupt fade, which doesn't sound as natural. And then as you slide it back, it kind of fades it out more. Also, if you right click, you can, or if you like alt click or some shit, or I forget now, shift, whatever. There we go. Yeah, if you right click here, you can change the style of the fade as well. So anyway. Okay, slide it back. Sometimes you have to zoom out to see where the next note really is. It looks like it's right here. So I'm going to pull it forward, time stretch this guy, overlap it so they crossfade. This one looks just a hair late. Split it, slide it back with Alt. And then here, because I don't need to time stretch, I'm just going to click and pull it over so it'll automatically crossfade. This note here is early, it looks like. So I'm going to splice it right before. Just click and drag it over. And then on the previous file, I'm going to hold down Alt and pull it over so it time stretches. And then also crossfades here. And then this note here, early, splice it, scoot it over. And then in this case, let's see if you're muting again. Yeah, that's actually a small mute. So I'm going to pull this guy back, fade it out. So it does sound kind of tight by itself, but it depends on the style you're going for. Bands like Born of Osiris have super robotically tight guitars, but in the mix it sounds like it's on purpose, so it's all about what you are trying to do. This tail fadered in so there's no pop. Late, slide it back, slide the previous file back and kind of blend them so that the notes seemingly look natural. Slide this guy back because he's a little late. And then just work on this crossfade. Last note here looks pretty good. And then as you can see below, your guitar here is way off. So actually now what I'll do is, now that I have this guitar edited, I'll go ahead and work on the second guitar to match. In which case, let's go ahead and split it right here so I don't affect anything before. And basically, now I'm going to take advantage of this top part here. Because it'll show us when I move the file around, you can see the bottom file is not aligned, and as soon as I go like this, then it kind of lines up there, and that's what we're gonna keep doing basically to make sure that these guitars line up. So now second note here looks way late on this guitar. Splice it. I don't need all this extra stuff, so I'm gonna get it out of there. Bring this guitar back now. And also line it up here, looking up top to make sure it lines up. And then just kind of fix this little crossfade. Splice it, slide this note back till it lines up, again referring to the top here. Splice, slide it back till it lines up, and then fix this crossfade. That's it. Again here, slice it, line it up, and then fix the crossfade here. This one's early. Slice it, slide it to the right. Now we have this gap here. Since we have a single note, we can stretch it, but if it were 2 notes, you wouldn't want to stretch it because that will affect that other first note that was once on, and then once you stretch it, it'll become off. So since it's 1 note, go ahead and stretch it, fix that crossfade, split, slide it back, fix that crossfade, and then here we have this palm mute. Go ahead and just line that up. Similar fade out. These to come in back at the same time. Similar fade in. And let's see how they line up. Pretty good. Just gonna hit. Usually when I do that, I hit Alt to make sure that this slides and I don't affect the ins and outs of the file itself or the clip itself. I guess this one's a little bit off there. And that's pretty much the concept for editing. I'm not sure if there's something that I forgot to cover, but I'm pretty much slipping these files around, making sure stuff doesn't double. That's why I cut and time stretch when I need to, because sometimes you'll try to move stuff around and you'll realize that the same wave is actually in there twice in a row, so it starts to kind of like skip, and that's why you gotta do it the way that I was showing you. Alright, so now these guitars are over each other and they should sound pretty identical. Hold on. Alright, then in the mix, just for shits, so you can hear the difference. And it's just tedious, and once you get used to it, it's pretty fast. But I think that's about it.